Hello and welcome to The Naked Audience on WGAF, my fake call letters on video, and my YouTube channel. Well, alright, so we are going to have a new segment today on The Naked Audience. Why The Naked Audience? Yeah, obviously there's no audience here, but you are the audience, and the naked audience means, yeah, you can sit there in your birthday suit while you watch. All right, so today's segment is a new show called How's My Phone? And that's with a question mark and an exclamation point, because it is a question, but I'm excited. I'm excited to share with you my music collection on my phone. Now, I know a lot of vinyl nerds out there will be up in arms, digital music, oh my God, oh, the crackling of vinyl. I have a vinyl collection, it's okay. I just like the convenience of stuffing as much music as I can onto my phone. I buy a large SD card and there it is. So, so I listen to music on my phone a lot, and I put all this music on my phone because, when the end of the world comes and there's no more internet, there'll be some electricity, hopefully. I can plug in my phone when I need to, charge it up, and then I have all my music. It's great, huh? And, if it's like Mad Max and you gotta be on the run, on the road, just stick this little bad boy in your leather vest and motor away. So what we do here on How's My Phone? I'm going to go through all my music in alphabetical order. And today we're starting with the A's, naturally. Of course, there'll be a few bands on here, at the very beginning, before A, which is like a number or an apostrophe in the band or artist name. Which, of course, I don't have a lot of that yet. But I'm going to include them because they're just a couple. And and the A's are pretty long. But we'll try to tear through this, So on today's show, I'll just let Bill tell you how to get prepared,
Well, gonna be a long goddamn show, sir. How are ya? Let's just settle in for this one. You might want to relax. You might want to fucking lay down. This is like pushing a fucking stone up a hill. I can already see it. Boom.
So, thank you, Bill. All right, so I will flash my screen on here in a moment. Gotta find the very beginning here, go all the way to the top, and then let's start recording my screen here on my phone. So it'll be with us today. All right, so hello phone. All right, here we go. Let's get going. We got a lot to go through today. So at the very top here, above A, we have Higginbottom, or like, Higginbottom with an English accent. Some English accents. So apostrophe Higginbottom. Higginbottom, their one and only record from 1969, Higginbottom's Wrench. Late 60s rock, very jazz influenced, which jazz influenced rock from the late 60s. It's probably some of the greatest music I've ever heard. Higginbottom's Wrench, it's probably mostly well known for Allan Holdsworth. Allan Holdsworth, of course, world-renowned, excellent guitarist, played so many bands, especially got well known from his stint in Soft Machine. Not my favorite era of Soft Machine, but we'll get to that when we get to the S's. But this record is really, really good. If you're a big fan of the first two Yes records, Self-Titled and Time and a Word, I know Yes nerds, they tend to rank those albums pretty low. How you could rate those albums lower than anything that came after the 70s is beyond me, but whatever. I'm a big fan of those two albums. So if you like that, Higginbotham's Wrench is right up your alley. Even the vocalist has a little bit of a John Anderson tone to his voice. Great melodies, great playing, of course. Highly recommended. So it has a nice place there at the very top of my list. Next we have a number band, the 360s. 360s out of Boston, a 90s rock band. Kind of got lost in the sea of rock bands out of Boston and in general in the alternative rock scene. I don't like that term, alt rock. This is just rock. 70s rock, a little bit of punk influence. Noisy. Audrey Clark, great vocalist. Produced by Sean Slade. What can I say? It's just really, really good stuff. Of course, Sean Slade, a lot of people might know him from Fort Apache Studios. Produced so much great stuff. Buffalo Tom, Dinosaur Jr., yada, yada, yada. Yeah, they had a few albums out. This is their second album. I find a lot of bands. First album, while it is great, the second album is when things really kind of hit a sweet spot. You know, like Dinosaur or Soft Machine or Wire. 360s, their second album, Supernatural, is just fantastic. I mean, Illuminated, their first album, excellent. The third album, Strawberry Stone, also really definitely deeper into the 70s groove. But the 360s is sort of that sweet spot. Psychedelic, loud, highly recommended. Next we have 801. Here I have two albums. 801 Live is, of course, their most well-known record, the live show with all these great guys. Phil Manzanera from Roxy Music, Brian Eno, also from Roxy Music and solo. Bill McCormick from Quiet Sun, Matching Mole, excellent bass player. The other guys, you know, Francis Monkman and Simon Phillips, Lloyd Watson. Yeah, I mean, it's a great lineup. Phil Manzanera / 801, Listen Now. This album it's a grower. It's good. Mostly original material, more or less here. Great stuff. But 801 Live, fantastic. A couple of covers. They're great, but what's really great, they dig up a couple of Quiet Sun songs with East of Asteroid and Wrong Wrong. And then a lot of Eno tunes. I mean, my gosh, just fantastic. And then Diamond Head, the version of Diamond Head on here, it's even better than the one on Phil Manzanera's Diamond Head album. It's just sublime. That's 801, great stuff. Okay, now we're getting into a German band here. Would I put them in krautrock? Maybe a little bit. Probably very early krautrock. Of course, I tend to find krautrock leans more on the experimental side, kind of phasing into electronic, repetitive, pastoral, ethereal sounds. There's a little bit of that on here, but this is definitely guitar, bass, drum-oriented music. Achim Reichel, the AR and AR machines, experiments with a lot of delay on his guitar. And Die Grüne Reise, the debut, is a fantastic record. My personal favorite is Echo. It's just a massive record. All these songs are super long, but it's like taking this long journey. You just put this thing on and away you go. So AR and Machines, excellent, excellent music from Germany. Abigail Mead, next on my list. Of course, I'm going through the artist category here on my Power Amp app. So when it comes to like various artist collection or a soundtrack, it tends to go towards the artist, the individual artist. So that's how it's written in the file. But so I have the whole soundtrack to Full Metal Jacket, and of course these are specifically the pieces from Vivian Kubrick, or as she's known here as Abigail Mead. Of course, Vivian Kubrick, a lot of behind-the-scenes activity, especially the documentary of The Shining she did. But here she did some music for her father's movie. Great music, very eerie. and experimental. Some of the greatest moments from the film feature this music. I love it. Let's keep going here. Here we have Achim Reichel, again the AR here. These tracks are obviously just listed under his name. Autovision, terrific album, and AR4, also great. Autovision has some horns on it. So it gets a little bit into newer territory, although all these AR albums feature a lot of his experimental delay guitar music, but it's all very unique. It doesn't all sound like the same song. They are definitely different pieces, and I highly recommend all of them if you can find them. I have 3 somewhere, but I don't have it on my phone at the moment. But that's just how my phone's doing at the moment. Achim Reichel and Machines. So here I just have Echo on here. I have it on here twice because it's such a great album. I think this might be a vinyl rip of it. Yeah, I just like it because it has the alternative artwork. So all you nerds out there with your vinyl, oh yeah, the artwork's important. You got to look at the artwork when you listen to it. Yeah, I love artwork, and so it's also important to me. That's also what I like about Power Amp, is finding the specific artwork I want for my files here. All right, moving on. Acid, another German 70s rock band. I wouldn't necessarily put these guys in the krautrock category. It's just very 70s oriented rock. Acid. Pretty much says it all, although it's not really psychedelic. It's pretty straightforward. Look at these titles: After Midnight, Midnight Queen, Turning Like a Rolling Stone, Your Sweet Love, Hard Rockin' Band. These titles are a little bit cringy. Yes, cringy. Cringy is an adjective, and so I describe cringy. Yeah, I don't describe cringy, I describe the titles with cringy. But cringe is not an adjective, although people are using it as an adjective now. Let's not ruin the English language, people. So if something makes you cringe, it is cringy. And these titles, cringy just because they're just sort of standard. But it rocks. It's pretty good. Let's keep moving. Adalbert von Dyen. Now, this is definitely in the krautrock vein, without a doubt. Late 70s, early 80s. A lot of synth music, keyboard, experimental, long pieces. But he is fantastic. If you like that kind of music, this would make great soundtrack music. But it's absolutely fantastic. It reminds me a lot of Tangerine Dream. What else can I say about it? I say we keep moving on here. Adrian Belew, of course, Frank Zappa, David Bowie, Talking Heads, and King Crimson. Here, the solo artist, Adrian Belew. I have 5 of his albums here. I've kind of narrowed it down to some of the essentials, although I do want more of his albums. I think I do have more somewhere on my hard drive or something. But Lone Rhino is a great debut, one of the best debut solo albums. But they're all great. Great, very influenced by 60s rock. He's a fantastic guitar player. I like him because he's not really flashy. It's not about speed. It's more just the originality, the tones, and just the noises he gets from his guitar are just incredible. And of course that voice, a really strong voice. Another German band here, Agamemnon. Part 1 and 2, although it should be parts 1 and 2, but whatever. Yeah, just 2 songs, almost 20 minutes long each. I don't know if I'd put this in the krautrock category either. It's a little bit more drawn out prog stuff, synth prog, but really good nonetheless. If you like really long pieces, which I know a lot of long pieces of music can get boring and go nowhere, but these have a little bit more to it than that. Agent Orange, this goes back to my skateboarding days in the 80s. Lots of punk in my life at that time. Agent Orange, surf punk band, Living in Darkness, absolutely legendary album. Bloodstains, probably the most famous tune off that record. This is the voice when they got a little bit less punky, but it's still there. But the songwriting is still great. Mike Palm, the only remaining original member, he's a great songwriter, good guitar player. Here I have their EP, which is kind of sandwiched in between these two releases. When you least expect it, they do a great version of Somebody to Love by Jefferson Airplane. But surf punk, great stuff. Agent Orange, I saw them in '93. Again, Mike Palm was even then the only original member, but it was still a great show. All right, Agitation Free, another German band. Definitely, I'd probably put these guys a little bit more in the krautrock genre. German rock, leaning more towards krautrock, because it has that experimental vibe to it. Malesh is probably their most well-known album, which is a fantastic album, although I find that I listen to the last album a little bit more. I think it's great. Only 3 songs on it. But yeah, German prog, leaning into the krautrock vibe a little bit there. Okay, the first of many Robert Pollard projects here listed on my phone. Airport 5 is a collaboration with Tobin Sprout. Of course, these two guys are a great songwriting team, and they only had 2 albums. Tower and the Fountain of Sparks and Life Starts Here. Is one album better than the other? I don't know. I like them both pretty much equally. I think they're all it's really unique. It's not exactly like everything you've heard by them in Guided by Voices, although it has a little bit of that, of course. How could it not? I like The Cost of Shipping Cattle because I love that vocal melody at the end. On Life Starts Here, we have Wrong Drama Addiction, which is 7 minutes and 25 seconds. Pretty long for a Pollard composition. But it's experimental. The vocals are fantastic. Right. So right underneath this, we have an Airport 5 / Guided by Voices EP, which just has, of course, songs by both bands. But this one is really special because it has a really excellent version of Dayton, Ohio, 19-something and 5 on it, which is, of course, originally from the Tonics and Twisted Chasers album, which we'll talk about when we get to the G's. But this is a really nice live version of that on this EP. Okay, Alan Parsons Project. I like Alan Parsons a lot. I like a lot of his albums. For whatever reason, at the moment, I just have one song from Eye in the Sky. Eye in the Sky is probably not his best album. It's decent, but this song is my favorite song off that album because it has Colin Blunstone singing on it. Colin Blunstone is, of course, a great vocalist from the Zombies, and he has a lot of solo music, which we'll get to when we get to the C's. But his voice is great. To me, it's very similar to Nick Drake. I don't know how many people know Nick Drake and not Colin Blunstone. If you listen to one, you probably listen to the others. I just kicked my tripod. Excuse me. I got to move over here so there's room for my phone. All right. So Old and Wise is a terrific song featuring Colin Blunstone. Alan Price. Alan Price, of course, started off in the Animals on the keys. He's only on the first couple albums, and then he split. Eventually ended up working with Lindsay Anderson, creating soundtracks for Lindsay Anderson. A great director, musician collaboration, of course, here. Oh Lucky Man, probably my favorite soundtrack from that collaboration. All these songs are featured in the film. Fantastic film. This film just blew me away the first time I saw it. But 2 versions of Oh Lucky Man are great, but my favorite song is probably Sell Sell. Just a great, great, groovy tune. But yeah, Alan Price, wonderful. I need to get more of his stuff on here than the soundtracks from the other Anderson movies. But this is definitely the strongest one to date, although I'll probably like the other ones the more I listen to them. But I listen to that one the most. And it's been in my life for a long time. I got it on vinyl shortly after I saw the film, which is in the 90s, Anyway, let's keep moving. Alcatraz, another German band. not so much in the krautrock genre, just more of just jazzy prog. The first album has a lot of horns, so it's very horn-oriented jazz prog. The second album that I have on here, Vampire State Building, also really good, a little bit more guitar-oriented, but great stuff nonetheless. Alessandro Alessandoni. Yeah, I got a gift certificate when I was living in New York. A friend of mine gave me a gift certificate for my birthday to a record store in Brooklyn. I went there, and I must have been in there for 2 hours, you know. I mean, whenever I go into a record store, I'm probably there for no less than 2 hours. But I was there actually searching for something to buy or something to get with my gift certificate. And I wanted to make sure I got something completely unique and maybe something I'd never necessarily heard before. And I went to the soundtrack section and found this beauty here, Music for Strange Situations. And Alessandro Alessandoni did a lot of music for a lot of sleazy 70s movies. So it's that kind of music, if you know what I mean. But it's great stuff. Really unique, kind of comical, maybe unintentionally, but it's good stuff nonetheless. Olive Lenz, another German artist. Oh yeah, of course, Power Amp. When there's no album title in the file, it just goes to a random photo from your phone. And here we have a nice little old photo of Soft Machine. But at any rate, I only have two songs by her on my phone. The one is "Fall Into Me," and that's the song that turned me on to her, because that's featured in "Hated in the Nation," the episode of Black Mirror. It's kind of a feature-length episode, you know, a police procedural about it takes place in the future, and of course this song is really eerie and sad. But it's wonderful, and her vocal is just absolutely great. The second song, Lens, I don't think that's the title. I don't know where I got it, but I should probably get a little bit more stuff by her. Okay, Alice Cooper. Okay, again, another artist I've narrowed down to what I feel are the essentials. I don't really need too much more by him. I know there's sort of the lost period in the late 70s, early 80s. I might get more into that, but right now, you know, starting with Pretty's For You, the Alice Cooper Band, I like it. I like it a lot. A lot of people don't think it's so great, but I find it very unique and unusual. Reflected is, in particular, a great song. It's an early version of Elected. Here it's a little bit more psychedelic. Yeah, Muscle of Love, not so great. A couple good songs, but... yeah, greatest hits I have on here because, of course, I like the artwork. Drew Struzan, one of the greatest film poster artists and album artists. I love his artwork on this album. But in particular, I have this just because, yeah, I like the version of Is It My Body on here. It's a studio version because the one on Love It to Death is a live version. It's good, but I prefer the studio version. Killer, also a great album. Okay, another German band, Amandul 2 or Amandul 2. Yeah, this is listed without the umlaut, but this particular folder has my favorites, Amandul 2, Viva la Trance, and Wolf City. Of course, Yeti is probably their most well-known album. A lot of people tend to say that's their best, but I like Wolf City. I think Wolf City is just a tight, shorter album. I don't like it because it's shorter, but it's just every song. It's just like bam, bam, bam. Great, great. No filler in there. And Viva la Trance is great because they sort of are slowly abandoning kind of the progginess of their music and trying something else, going a little bit more towards just regular rock songs, but they're very unique songs. But of course, moving on here, then we have Amandul, the original band, which is a completely different band, more experimental. Psychedelic Underground is the one I have here. I guess you could say this is German hippies. German hippies are a little bit different than American hippies. Maybe they don't smell as much. I don't know, but this is just great experimental music. A little bit different than their Part 2 counterparts, Here, I'm on Duel, a folder with the umlaut. A few more of their albums. Almost Alive doesn't get that much love. I think it's good. It's a really good. There's still some proggy elements to it. It's probably their last really good album. Live in London is a fantastic live record by those guys. Again, not necessarily krautrock, but it is rock music that's very unique sounding. You know, it doesn't seem to be blues influenced. Maybe some of the solos are kind of blues rocky, but it's just it doesn't sound American. Doesn't sound English. It just the kind of rock music they do. It just has a unique flavor to it. All right, the Amps. Probably my favorite Kim Deal release. It's right in that medium fi sweet spot, you know. And this is also very GBV centric, you know. They do a Pollard song on here. And of course, Jim McPherson is on drums, also from the Breeders. And then we have Nate Farley, or Fate Gnarly, on guitar. And then we have Louis Lerma from the Tasties. Of course, the Tasties did Lexo and the Leapers with Robert Pollard. But Breaking the Split Screen Barrier. What a song. But I love this album. Of course, it's very Breeders-y, but yeah, it's mostly just very Kim Deal-y. But that makes it just amazing. Amsterdam Guitar Trio. Don't really know much or anything about these guys. This might be from my LimeWire days. But I like guitar rondos. This is Rondo in C, Opus 73. Yeah, it's a nice long classical guitar, nylon strings, and it's a rondo Chopin. Can't go wrong there. Andre Williams, great blues guy. Had a comeback in the late 90s, early 2000s. Has a few more albums than this, obviously, but this is the one I have here at the moment. Silky. The song titles alone are worth the price of admission. Agile, mobile, and hostile. I want to be your favorite pair of pajamas. Pussy's dank, but so do marijuana. Car with a Star, that's a nice groovy tune too. So it's just like blues with nasty, gringy guitar, garage guitar rock. Very bluesy oriented. I saw him live, and that was great. I think he just mostly sang, didn't play guitar, but he had a great band with him. That was a fantastic show. Moving along, of course, this track has Andre Francis as the artist listed. Andre Francis with John Coltrane. This is from the Love Supreme Deluxe Edition. Yeah, it's a very short song, 1 minute 14. But of course, it's Love Supreme, John Coltrane. You know, I definitely lean more towards jazz than blues when it comes to music in general. Even in rock music, when it's a little bit more jazz tinged, I find it to be way more interesting and original. So a lot of the jazz, original jazz with John Coltrane here is great. I mean, I have all the rest of Love Supreme on here. We'll get to that when we get to the Jays. So let's move on here. Andre Segovia, great classical guitarist from Spain. Yeah, these are just great collections of stuff. He does Bach on the one, and then the other one is just various things. My favorite works. So he does. I mean, I don't need to say more about it than this. Just Andre Segovia, brilliant guitarist, or was. Angelo Badalamenti, probably one of the greatest living film composers. Oops, what happened here? My phone is very sensitive here when I tap it, not the way it wants me to. So yeah, I just have mostly, only the stuff he does for David Lynch's projects. I don't have any of his other collaborations or solo stuff on here, but it's okay. I intend on building that later, but you know. Yeah, I have Mulholland Drive twice on here. One is a little bit longer, has some extra tunes on it, but as you'll see here, I got Twin Peaks, Fire Walk With Me, Blue Velvet. Yeah, great, eerie, sad, experimental. It's all there. Back to the Animals. I don't have a lot of Animals on here. I think I have another Animals album on here, although I don't know where it is. But here we have The Twain Shall Meet, kind of the more psychedelic era, which I like. I like a lot more than their earlier stuff with Alan Price. Love Alan Price. Animals with Alan Price, cool, but not as interesting as, especially with The Twain Shall Meet, because it has, of course, the great psychedelic tune Sky Pilot. But the rest of this album is fantastic. Monterey. I mean, this is just great, great stuff. The Animals film, another soundtrack. This is music that Robert Wyatt did for this short film. What else can I say? It's very experimental, but again, kind of eerie but great soundtrack music. I just love it, and it shows you a little something different by Robert Wyatt than his usual songs. He's a great songwriter, likes to sing pop songs. Was in my opinion, the greatest drummer ever. But this is very experimental, very different stuff from him, but great. Nexus Quam, slightly into the krautrock. I mean, they're from Germany, more proggy, but the experimental side kind of leans more. It's making them a little bit more unique than your average prog band. I have here 2 albums, Osmose and Beziehungen. Both fantastic albums, although I think Osmose, I mean, besides from the great artwork, I tend to listen to that one more. But they're both great. I need to listen to Beziehungen a little bit more. But Nexus Quam is another great prog rock band from Germany. Okay, another soundtrack. I have the soundtrack to Barry Lyndon here on my phone, and of course it's all spread out according to artist. And so here we have Anthony Goldstone. This is the piano trio, so this is kind of like the theme that they use from the movie, and this is just the version that's just on piano. Wonderful, wonderful soundtrack. Okay, going into my thrash days as a teenager in junior high school. You know, I used to listen to so much thrash and punk in those days. I got a little bit away from thrash music once I got into high school, but you know, I have no problem going back to it now. I think Anthrax is one of the better thrash bands. I mean, of course, they're one of the most well known, but it doesn't matter. Charlie Benante is a hell of a drummer. He's probably, in my opinion, the greatest, most talented band member. Although they're all great musicians, and but what can I say? My favorite is probably Spreading the Disease. I mean, just a great raw thrash album. And like when I listen to like Stormtroopers of Death, like that album, which of course has Scott Ian and Charlie Benante on it, and Dan Lilker from Anthrax at the time, is recorded about the same time as Spreading the Disease. I think Dan Lilker was gone by that point, but they have a very similar sound. It's almost like they recorded them on the same day. But AIR, one of the greatest thrash songs of all time. Other albums are good. State of Euphoria gets kind of a bad rap. I like it because it's a little bit different than everything else. And Persistence of Time continues that sort of interesting direction. Very thrashy, but again, not so typical. All right, Anthrax, enough of that. Anyone's Daughter, and another... this is kind of like folk prog, I guess. Not really krautrock, but it's from Germany. Although, yeah, it's very proggy, actually. But yeah, cool album cover there. This is Pictors Verwandlungen. This is, of course, literature from Hermann Hesse of Siddhartha fame. They did an album here based on that. But yeah, it's really nice. Just interesting prog from Germany. Art Bears. And here we go with something that's a little bit more rock and opposition related. This is basically Henry Cow, sort of with less members. We have Dagmar Krause on vocals, her great, unique voice. Fred Frith. I mean, what can I say about Fred Frith? If you don't know about Fred Frith, he's just one of the most interesting and talented musicians to play the guitar. He does more experimentations with guitar than almost anybody. And of course, Chris Cutler. I mean, you talk about amazing drummers. I mean, this guy, I don't even know how to describe his style. You just have to see it. You know, everything he's done from Art Bears and Henry Cow, and of course he worked with David Allen a lot. Just fantastic. Both albums on here are great winter songs, and we have The World As It Is Today, which is a really nice album. Of course, they have more stuff than this, but these are two really great examples of what they do. Arthur Conan Doyle. Quick story about Arthur Conan Doyle. When I was working in New York, I just had a radio in my office, and I would turn it on, and I hate terrestrial radio. Blah. But so I'd turn it either to the classical station or the talk stations, but I usually had it on jazz, naturally. And they played this piece of music. I was just like, oh my God, it sounded like it was recorded on a tape recorder with toy instruments. You know, it was just sort of like a jazzy version of Daniel Johnston. But crazier. The kooky, terrible vocals. And I thought, I guess I don't know anything about jazz. Is there something I'm missing here? Because it was so... My initial reaction was just like, what the hell is this? Naturally I just went out and got it on CD. Plays and Sings from the Songbook, Volume 1. I don't think there was ever a Volume 2. I don't know, I have to do a little bit more research, but this is all I have. If you like really, really lo-fi jazz recorded on toy instruments where you can hear them hitting the keyboards, the plastic keys, and just sort of, I guess, stream of consciousness vocals that don't really make any sense. I don't know, check it out. It's very bizarre and funny. Asherah Temple, okay. Emmanuel Gutsching. Krautrock. The first album, actually, these albums in particular are very much in the same vein as AR and Machines. Very psychedelic, long pieces of music. Great stuff, though. Love it. Manuel Gutsching. He went more into definite krautrock later when he experimented more with electronic music. This is mostly his guitar endeavors. But again, the first time I heard the first album, I was just blown away, and I just had to get more. So Join In, great. Schwingungen, also great. Starring Rosie, great. I'm not even going to bother with this French title, but those are really highly recommended psychedelic krautrock, tinged krautrock. Astrid Gilberto, okay. I have two of her albums. Neither one of these albums has Girl from Ipanema on it, which is, of course, probably her most well-known song. But I love her voice. I love her voice? Is that a question? No, I love her voice. And it's just really smooth Brazilian jazz, very loungy. An earlier album here, The Shadow of Your Smile, wonderful, beautiful. I haven't got anything, a little bit later, also wonderful. I saw her daughter, Bebel Gilberto, live. Does a lot of her mom's songs. Her music is a little bit more modernized versions of this type of music. And then completely unexpectedly, as I was standing there in the crowd watching her and enjoying the music, all of a sudden they went into a version of No Return by the Kinks. Of course, the Kinks being one of my favorites. I had no idea that she was playing that song, and it's perfect. I mean, Ray Davies did say he wrote that song wanting it to have kind of a Brazilian sound to it, and it was just perfect. Her voice, so she sounds a lot like her mother, but here Astrid Gilberto, just great, essential. Auto Salvage, psychedelic rock band from New York, the late 60s. I think this is their only album, Auto Salvage. Great, highly recommended. If you like late 60s psychedelic rock. It's not totally psychedelic. I don't know if it's because it's from New York. It's not from New York City. I think it's more New York State. I'm not sure. I got to do a little bit more research on that. But it does remind me a little bit of Love and Spoonful, also from New York, late 60s. But not as rootsy as Love and Spoonful. A little bit more psychedelic rock, but great stuff. Yeah. Okay, we're reaching the end here. Of course, Kevin Ayers, normally he would be in the K, but these particular albums just have his last name first, which is unusual here in my collection of music on my Power Amp app. But here, for now, we'll have more Kevin Ayers later, but here, of course, founding member of Soft Machine. I have Odd Ditties, must have if you like Kevin Ayers or you want to get into Kevin Ayers. This is probably a really good starting point. The version of I have those different versions of songs in here, like Decadence, but Butterfly Dance, fantastic song. Excellent song. I'd like to see Beck do a version of that. And then June 1st, 1974, of course, with Kevin Ayers, John Cale, Brian Eno, and Nico. Of course, it's mostly Kevin Ayers at the end, but it's a great album because it's Driving Me Backwards, Babies on Fire, great versions. You have Robert Wyatt on percussion, great version of Heartbreak Hotel with that weird, unique cover style that John Cale is known for, and of course Nico's version of The End is also very eerie. But yeah, so that's the A's. Yeah, looks like the B's are off to a pretty good start, but we'll get to that next time. If you made it this far, congratulations. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next episode of How's My Phone?
Boom.